Yo, what is going on, guys? J.Yumeko here. Today we're back with some more of the Shell Part 1 Inferno. Let's go. So, yeah, that's where we are. So, I probably will release, like an update video here soon, just to let you guys know. Just kind of going over some of the next games that I'm thinking of playing. I have some, like I've said this 1,000 times, but I do have some stuff lined up, but you know, I've also been introduced to a couple of games that I think might be pretty interesting to play. So, you know, because obviously we've wrapped up If My Heart Had Wings, we've wrapped up House in Fata Morgana. So, yeah, I do think that there's some extra stuff with House in Fata Morgana. I don't know how long it is, though. So I'm kind of holding off on doing a video on that just because I don't know if it's going to be like, you know, hey, here's a short little thing that's like a 10-minute, you know, video or like what. Anyways, we're back with the Shell Part 1 Inferno. The last time we left off, we finally got past what was apparently a hard stop, or like a hard stuck area there. So apparently it had something to do with the evidence that we chose to identify that it was Kusaka. However, I was theorizing that there has to be somebody else behind this. And my reasoning for that, you'll have to go back and watch the other videos. So go back and watch the last video. If you're new to this series, go back and watch this series from the beginning because it's fucking amazing. So without further ado, let's jump right on back into it. Just to quickly recap. Again, we got evidence on Kusaka. We captured him, arrested him. You know, Shugo's wife is okay. However, there is somebody that was maybe not so lucky. And that is why I think that this is at the very least a two-man operation. I think Kusaka was honestly just a pawn and a scapegoat. So, we'll find out. So, I believe we are at Yumi Takegawa, I think her name was. Let me check her name. No, Yui Nishizono. Man, I fucked that up. I don't know where I got Yumi Takegawa, but anyways, yeah. So we're at Yui Nishizono's grave. We came with her good friend Ayumu, I believe her name was. Yeah, we came with her friend Ayumu, and for some reason Toko's here. So, however, when I turned around, she was there.
学院を出る時からずっと後ろにいたんだけれど、気づかなかったんだね。
Toko miffed, her cheeks inflated slightly.
佐藤さんとのおしゃべりに忙しかったのかな？
そういう状態じゃなかっただろうが。
うん、そうだったね。
Toko accepted my explanation rather easily, nodding before she kneeled in front of Yui's grave and said a prayer.
私にとっても美術部の後輩だったから。
Toko whispered that and stood up.
さて、帰ろうか、時坂先生。
もう先生じゃない。仕事は終わったんだ。
そうなの？
Toko regarded my face curiously.
そうなると寂しくなるね。
何を言ってるんだ、お前は。
I tapped Toko's head.
別にどこか遠くへ行くわけでもなし、いつでも会えるだろう。
会いに行ってもいいんだ。
Ah, she's blushing.
まあ、構わないぞ。
本当？それじゃあ時坂さんは私の
なんだ？
For some reason, I really wanted to know what she'd planned to end the sentence with.
私のまだ内緒にしておこうかな。
My boyfriend!
なんだそりゃ。
そうね。時坂さんは私の相棒ということでいいよ。
おいおい、相棒ったって何を一緒にするんだよ。
それはもちろん尾行だったら得意だよ、私。
Toko laughed, her voice clear like a ringing bell. Intermezzo.
汽車に揺られる。 左手側には海が見える。右手側にはのんきに眠るあなたがいる。頬をつつくと首をすくめていやいやをする。その仕草がたまらなく可愛らしい。どうぞこれからも安らかに。
Oh, my back. Alright.
兄さん、こちらですよ。
The trees are blooming. Yukari's okay. Yukari was leading me somewhere. An unusual sight to those in our circle. I casually followed her as I carried our stuff and took stock of our surroundings. It was a tranquil spring afternoon. The pond served as an immaculate mirror for the light pink hues of cherry blossoms that adorned the trees encircling its shores. Petals danced in the pleasant breeze, signaling the start of a new season. Yukari spread a mat out under one of the cherry trees. Meanwhile, I put down the boxes of food and bottles of alcohol I was carrying before kicking off my shoes and sitting cross-legged on the makeshift blanket.
天気が良くて良かったな。
ええ、本当に。
Yukari smiled as she opened the boxes. Symmetrical rows of steamed fish paste, sliced meat seasoned with soy sauce, and so forth were unveiled. Yukari had been up early cooking everything.
どれ一口。
I picked up a piece of meat and took a bite.
なんだこれ。シャリシャリしてるが。エビか？
イナゴの佃煮ですよ。
Bruh, of course. Leave it to Yukari. It's my sister's bug mania know no bounds?
あら、お気に召しませんでしたか？自分で作ってみたんですけれど。
Yukari gracefully ate her grasshoppers as though dining on the finest foie gras the world had to offer.
よく食えるな。
美味しいですよ。他にも蜂の子をいたものとサ
Roasted
ザムシの
bee and
佃煮があります
stonefly larvae.
俺はおにぎりとかまぼこだけ食ってるよ。
I sprawled out onto the mat after getting buzzed.
兄さん、お行儀が悪いですよ。
そう気にするなよ。
まあ、
Despite Yukari's grumbling, she offered up her knees as a pillow without me even asking. The breeze gently caressed my cheek. Spring's warmth had me in its bosom. The aroma of cherry blossoms tickled my nose as it waltzed across the wind. Yukari giggled as she plucked a petal out of my hair.
兄さん、寝てしまわれたのですか？
Yukari quietly asked me that question not too long after I closed my eyes. No, but I'm gonna doze off any second now. I slowly drifted off into the land of slumber, too drowsy to even bother telling her that.
先生とゆかり、むっちゃラブラブだ。疲れているのよ。しばらく休ませてあげて。
Tojiro! Two voices resounded beside me. It seemed I dozed off for quite some time. Is that Tojiko I hear?
うわ、起きた。
I opened my eyes to the positively disturbing image of Tojiko's face right up in my own.
起きちゃ悪いのか？
せっかく先生の顔にいたずら書きしちゃおうと思ってたのに。
頼むからやめてくれ。
I got up, stifling the urge to yawn right in Tojiko's face.
つづり子もどう？ねえ先生、大丈夫そうなのってどれ？
Even Tojiko knew better than to blindly eat what Yukari served.
その佃煮は大丈夫だろ。
バッタの足みたいなの見えてるけど。どうしたの？
Yukari ate another piece of bug without so much as batting an eye.
よく食べられるね、それ。去年、学院の裏手にある田んぼで取ったイナゴでしょ。
Her face,
ええ、
dude.
そうですよ。私には無理だわ。
Figured. Tojiko leaned against the tree and looked up at the sky.
綺麗だね。やっぱりここにも埋まってるのかな。
梶井元次郎か？
あ、よくわかったね。先生だったら 本当に桜の木の下に埋まった死体も見てるんじゃないの？
さすがにそんな都合のいいものはないさ。花を咲かせるほどの大きさになった桜の木なんて根は無人に張ってるし、土を掘り返すだけで一苦労だ。
夢がないな。
そんな夢を持つなよ。もっと健康的な夢を持てよ。
夢ね。あ、そうだ、今度私の本が出るんだよ。
へえ、よかったじゃないか。
もっと褒めてくれても構わないよ。
All hail the amazing Suzu Rider for good measure.
で、エロいのか？
なんでそういうのばっか気にするかな、おっさんは。
Spare my sides. No, seriously, I could have done without the kick to the flank.
つづり子、そんなに足を上げては見えてしまいますよ。
Suzuriko hastily pressed her skirt down.
見えた？
見えてないから安心しろ。
That night, I sat in my bedroom poring over a letter. My name was elegantly written on the envelope, and on the back was the name Toko Kuchiki, as I'd expected. There weren't any postmarks. Did that mean she delivered in person? Not like it mattered, whatever the case. I broke the seal and took out the letter.
お誘い？
The following was written there. Would you please do me the favor of accompanying me to the art museum on Monday, March 26th? If that is agreeable with you, then I shall be waiting at Kichijoji Station. My eyes boggled at how formal the whole thing was. Never in my wildest dreams could I picture Toko saying anything like that.
まあ、どうせ暇だろうから構わないか。
We're going on a date. A date with a high schooler. What could go wrong? I arrived at Kichijoji Station early the next morning. Hardly any people were there. Only natural considering it wasn't even rush hour.
なんでこんな時間に。
Spring may have finally shown its face, but that didn't make the mornings any warmer.
時坂さん、来てくれたんだね。
Toko trotted over from the station.
あんな手紙が来たら来ざるを得ないだろうが。
じゃあ作戦の第一段階は成功と考えて差し支えないのかな。
何の作戦だよ。
まあ気にしないでいいよ。
Toko chuckled innocently. Her milky white breath steamed through her lips.
で、なんでこんな朝早くなんだ？まだ美術館だって開いていないだろう。
それはね、この時間じゃないと間に合わないからなんだよ。じゃあ行こうか。
何か特別展示があるのか？
それは着いてからのお楽しみだよ。
Maybe we'll finally figure out what, well, there's no guarantee it's going to be the same Shinzo Mamiya, I think that's his name, exhibit from earlier, but we still have to figure out more about just Toko in general. So, I do kind of wonder though, because I mean, I have to feel that there's no way this just ends here, right? Like, oh, we caught Kuzuka, end of story. I mean, it could very well be that, you know, because there's 3 games, it could very well be that each game is, pertains to like a particular case that we have to solve. That could totally be the thing. But, and that's not hard to imagine, but so far, it's a little bit doubtable that it's just gonna, end like that. But we'll see. Toko took my hand and led me away.
なあ、トコ。
なんだい？
That cheeky little... She's enjoying this, isn't she?
ここはどこだ？
見ればわかるじゃないか。倉敷だよ。
倉敷ってのは上野か？
バカだな。岡山県に決まってるじゃないか。
なぜ俺は岡山県にいるんだ？
ちゃんと手紙に書いたじゃないか。美術館へ行きたいと。
Toko grabbed my arm after checking the station's clock.
ここから歩いて15分くらいらしいから、早く行こう。
おい。
My companion hauled me away, leaving my mind leagues behind our situation. She said art exhibit, she never specified where. Nakahara Museum of Art, okay. Toko finally stopped at what looked like a temple straight out of ancient Greece.
あ、よかった。まだ空いているみたいだ。
これが美術館か？
そうさ、中原美術館といって西洋画の所蔵量に関しては国内随一のところだよ。
ああ、ここだったのか。確か戦時中もこの美術館があるおかげで倉敷が爆撃されなかったという噂もあったな。
そりゃここの絵画が失われては世界にとっての損失だからね。
Toko nodded and stepped inside as if she were giving a tour. The art museum was quieter than an abandoned house, and only slightly less deserted than one. Must have been because it was almost closing time. Toko stared fervidly at all sorts of paintings. Many were by artists I'd heard of before. Monet, Renoir, Gauguin, and so on. I didn't have much of an eye for art. Still, even I could see the passion behind every single piece. There was also several Japanese works on display, but none of them were Shinzo Mamiya's. A staffer helpfully explained that they'd loaned all their Mamiyas to the Tokyo Metropolitan Art Museum. I looked to my side to find a different employee explaining something to Toko.
Toko.
The staffer in question bowed and ambled off when I made my way over to Toko.
すごいね。東京で私たちが見た絵もここで所蔵していたものだそうだよ。
ああ、それは俺も聞いたよ。間宮心臓の絵もここにあったのだそうだ。
みたいだね。ほんと、来てよかったよ。
Toko nodded, clearly pleased by her decision. Toko heaved a deep sigh after we left the museum.
満足したか？
当然だろ。これだけの名画が揃っていたんだから。
それはよかった。ここまで来た甲斐があったな。
怒ってないの？
Toko's voice dropped an octave.
ん？俺が？
ほら、急にこんなところまで連れてきちゃってさ。迷惑じゃなかったかなって。
Excuse me.
呆れはしたな。
It's early in the morning.
そうだよね。
呆れはしたけれど、怒っちゃいないぞ。
うん。ありがとう。それじゃ帰ろうか。今からだと夜行になっちゃうかもしれないけれど。
Toko grounded to a halt once they reached the train station.
夜行列車ないね。
Oh yeah, how convenient. Yeah, no, she knew that. Come on.
ほんの10分前に行っちまったみたいだな。
立ち話してなかったら間に合ったかもね。
Toko turned to me, crestfallen.
どうしよう。
どうしようって。お前な。
ここで来ない列車を待ち続けていても仕方ないだろ。
True enough. I checked my wallet. Though I didn't have much on me, it was still enough to last us the night. After all, it wouldn't do us any good to stay out and catch a cold.
仕方ない。どこか泊まれる場所を探そう。
それがいいかもしれないね。
親御さんに連絡しておけよ。
ああ、うん。でも、うちは大丈夫だから。
俺が誘拐犯にでもされたらかなわんからな。
時坂さんに誘拐されるなら構わないけれどな。
Alright, Tucker, listen, man. There's a lot of legal insinuations with this whole situation that don't favor me,
む
alright?
しろ今回は俺がトーコに誘拐されたようなもんだけどな。
We exchanged that ridiculous banter as we attempted to find an inn. The two of us were finally able to take a breather once a taxi brought us to an inn.
新婚さんに見られたかな、私たち。
何を言ってるんだか。
Though Toko did look mature for her age, we'd still only pass for siblings at best. No surprise there, since she and Yukari were the same age and all.
へえ、ここって混浴のお風呂があるんだ。
Something in my mind is it's just predicting a lot of censorship that I'm going to need to do in just a second here. And I really, really don't like that. Could she be any less subtle?
それは良かったな。一人で入ってこいよ。
時坂さん、一緒に入ろうか。
お前な。
私の体が他の人に見られても構わないというのかい？
そうは言ってないが。
じゃあ決まりだね。さあ行こう。
Toko grabbed my arm before I could get another word in edgewise.
早く汗を流したいんだ。今日は随分と外にいたからね。
おいおい。
I couldn't exactly blame her, since I was just as crazy for not seriously putting my foot down. If I really didn't want to go with her, then I wouldn't have done it. Come on, brother. Come on, man. The open-air bath was unoccupied. I went in first after getting undressed in the men's room. Every inch of me above water level was chilly. Not that it came as a surprise in this weather. It would have looked rather elegant had it been snowing, but the only hint of white in the sky came from the moon and the stars, sadly enough.
結構寒いんだね。
I heard Toku through the mist and steam.
早く使った方がいいぞ。
そうだね。
Toko sat next to me, clad in nothing but a large towel. Not even a moment later, she shot me a coy look.
もしかして浴場してるのかな？
Toko covered her body with her hands.
バカ言え。
I gazed back at the sky after shooting her down.
今日は満月なのかな？
Toku looked right up at it alongside me.
そのようだな。
岡山で見る月も綺麗だね。
東京の月は霞んでいることが多いからな。昔に比べりゃ星も見えにくくなった。
Yet here they burn just as brilliantly as the moonlight.
昔ね。
俺がガキの頃、戦争が始まる前だな。あの頃は街の街灯も少なくて、夜空がはっきりと見えたんだ。
That really brought me back. Though I still lived in the same house, the city was totally different. Musashino was burnt to a crisp during the war by the air raids. Yet just a few years later, it had morphed into a landscape of tall Western-style buildings and paved roads with droves of cars passing by. Honestly, it had more people than ever.
まあ、東子が物心つく前の話だろうけどな。
そうだね。
You know, it's something that like is always like in the back of my mind with this, but this game does take place in like I don't know exactly when, but you know, does it tell us? I know it gives you like dates and stuff. Yeah, see, here we go. So 1956. So it's like this is not like modern day at all. This is fucking almost 75 years ago, I believe. Well, actually, more accurate, more like 70 years ago at this point. Now Toku was staring off into space.
なんだ、のぼせたのか？
そうかもしれないね。
Toko brushed her hair upward. A few lone wet strands clung to her faintly flushed cheeks. My heart throbbed when I saw her. It was hard to keep it in check. She had a somber face that looked a whole decade older from the side. Smooth and slender limbs unshielded by the towel graced my eyes. Pale, nigh pallid skin that glistened in the dark of the night was all I could see.
時坂さん？
ああ、
Her voice brought me back to my senses.
時坂さんこそのぼせているんじゃないのかな。
そんなことはないと思うんだが。
Crap, I've got to calm down.
年を取ると長湯は危険だよ。
年寄り扱いするなよ。
だって時坂さんは私よりも年上じゃないか。
俺は時々お前がずっと年下だってことを忘れそうになるよ。
ふーん。
Toko snaked her arms around mine. Her soft skin slithered across my body.
おい、
時坂さんにそう言われるの。
Toko seductively pressed up against me. Guess she's only mature on the surface. That thought abruptly came to my mind. After all, I could feel her tiny body shivering. I gently touched her shoulder. Toko's eyes widened.
東子。
Come on, man. We don't gotta do this. We don't have to do this, man.
うん。
She nodded. I pulled off the towel covering her body. Toku was ever so slight. We'll wait a little bit. But I've been thinking maybe I go and censor the character dialogue just so I don't have to, like, because I mute some parts of the audio in these scenes just because I don't want to fucking risk anything right now, especially with how much moaning is in this shit. So, but yeah, so I might do that once things get a little bit spicy. Toko was ever so slightly flushed, flecks of crimson running across her skin.
あまりそうまじまじと見ないでほしいな。
Toko tried hiding her breast with her hands.
時坂さんも興奮してるの？
She was looking straight at my crotch.
仕方ないだろ
そうだね。
Toko chuckled.
愛し合わない二人がこんなところでこんなことをするのも仕方ないのだろうね。
Toko reached for my dick. Knowing I couldn't answer her question, I embraced her. Toko moaned.
足に当たってるよ。
当てているんだよ。
I kissed down the back of her neck while my hard-on dug into her thigh. Yeah, we get it. Toko's fingers combed through my hair. I reached for her crotch. Her pubic hair brushed against my fingertips. A small slide down was all it took for me to brush against her hardened clitoris.
どこも
We don't need all that.
興奮しているだろ
I licked her earlobe as I whispered that to her.
だからさっき時坂さんもって言ったろ。
Toko was twitching like mad.
ねえ、私も
う。欲しいのか。
Toko nodded, face red like a lobster. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna go ahead to configuration, voice settings. We're just gonna voice volume. Let's see. Gonna go ahead and turn that down. Oh, actually, you know what we could do instead? Let's just go to Toko Kuchiki.
Yeah. 朽木瞳子です。
I'm just gonna turn her off. Can I just mute her? I guess the best you can do is just make it really quiet. Okay, that's fine. It'll be quiet enough for now. Her pussy swallowed my cock with the help of her weight. You guys can't hear it. Hopefully.
大丈夫か。
I held her steady in my arms. Yeah, no need to worry. Anyway, why are you touching my breasts?
嫌なのか。
No, I don't. It's just they're not very big, so
そんなことないと思うぞ。
I don't think the artist for this image got the memo that her breasts weren't supposed to be big, because these are pretty sizable. No, my nipples are. Toko's back arced like a bow when I played with her nipples.
感じやすいのか。
I don't know. I felt her nipples getting harder and harder. Should I voice? Oh, God. It's just... Nah, I'm not going to do that. It's just really weird. I felt her nipples getting harder and harder. You guys can read for yourselves. You know what's happening. Toko moved her waist in a desperate search for pleasure.
わかったよ。
Toko moaned nasally when I thrust my hips forward. The water splished and splashed around us, quaking with ripples.
なんだい。
I didn't stop thrusting as I replied.
そんなことはないよ。どうか、そろそろ俺も。
I felt my climax gradually building. Toko panted and shook her hips some more. Come in her or pull out. Well, boy howdy, fellas. I don't know. Man, what the fuck? Ugh, let's see. I mean, does it matter? Like, does it matter? Let's save just in case. Just in case. You never fucking know. I don't... What did we do last time? I think the first time technically that we did it with Toko, I'm pretty sure we did come in her. With Orihime, I think we came on her face, if I'm remembering correctly. Or at least one time. I don't know. We do it multiple goddamn times with each of these goddamn girls. I don't think it matters, but you know, I like to overthink things. Let's pull out.
Toko!
Nice. Hey guys, I think there's a shark in the water. There's a shark in the water, guys. I pulled out just in time, cum sputtering all over the water. See, imagine if somebody comes in to take a bath after this and they just see our cum floating in the water.
ちょっと大変なことになったな。
Better get a bucket and start scooping it up. Literally. Toko giggled. We left the bath before the water got too chilly and returned to our room. Alright, let me turn it back up now. I think I should be able to do this. Oops. Let's do this. Whoa. Toko called out to me from the futon next to
な
mine.
んだ。
そっち行ってもいいかな。
Excuse me.
ああ。おいで。
I lifted the covers and beckoned her toward me. Toko nestled up next to me, our bodies fitting perfectly against one another.
時坂さん、私変かもしれないんだ。
変。
さっきからずっと体が熱くて。
熱か。
ううん、違うよ。ほら。
Toko smiled awkwardly before guiding my hand to her pussy. Oh, God damn it. Hot juices coated my fingers when they passed under the hem of her yukata.
どうしてかな。時坂さんの匂いを嗅いだからかも。
I slipped my finger into her.
時坂さん、私、今なのかな。
Toko was panting like mad.
そんなことはないさ。
I gently spread her collar open. Guys, we just got done with this. We're going back at it again already. Her shapely breast plopped right out. The nipple was still hard from all the foreplay in the bath.
ねえ、時坂さん、来て。
Toko's breathy voice sent shivers down my spine. I straddled her before kissing her breast. Toko jolted. I licked her nipple, tossing it about while digging my fingers deeper into her slit.
そこ。
Toko reached for my cock.
ねえ、もう、お願い時坂さん、入れて。
Jesus, man. Man, why are these girls so fucking horny, man? What the fuck, man? Alright, we gotta turn Toko down again. I lifted Toko and placed her on my knees. My cock dove deep into her in one swift motion. Her walls wriggled hard around my manhood every time she moaned. Toko started moving her hips the second I penetrated her.
どこ、そんなに動かれたら。
Her breast jiggled when she moved. I held her in place as I ran my tongue over her nipple again and again. Toko shook her hips harder, hunting for new heights of pleasure. She swung every which way as if she was trying to stimulate her entire pussy from top to bottom. A symphony of squelching and moans reverberated through the room. Honestly, I wanted to just watch Toko act lecherous for a while longer, but that'd only make her suffer more. I grabbed her hips and thrust up and down. Toko was practically screaming. God, I'm glad I fucking turned her volume down. Her hair flew all over the place.
行くぞ。
Toko tensed up, her face lost in a daze. I guess it didn't fucking matter that that I pulled out the last time if we were just gonna do it inside this time anyway. I mean, fucking the delusion of choice, or illusion of choice. You came a ton again. Toko stroked her abdomen.
ねえ時坂さん
Toko was sitting by my pillow, her yukata all straightened out.
どうした？
約束覚えてる？
約束。依頼のことかい？
As if I could ever forget that anymore.
覚えていてくれたんだね。まだ探偵さんに伝えていないことがあったんだ。
なんだい？
I sat up and looked her in the eye.
私は養子だったんだ。
Those words hung over me like a specter.
戸籍を調べたのかい？
She nodded.
今の自分が本当の自分じゃないような気がすると言っただろ。その原因を探ろうとしたんだ。まさかこんなはっきりとした結果が出るとは思っていなかったけれどね。
Toko snorted ever so quietly.
あそこの朽木家の人間じゃないという思いは昔から漠然と持っていたんだ。多分戦争で起こった混乱に乗じて誰かに連れてこられたんじゃないのかな。
そのことは他に誰か知っているのか？
私が戸籍を調べたことだったら母さんやおじさんには言っていないよ。私の思いだったら今時坂さんに言ったのが初めてだよ。
そうか。
でもそれ以上のことは調べられなかったんだ。だから改めて探偵さんにお願いしたいんだ。私は本当の自分を知りたいから。
So I guess this has kind of become a lot more literal now because it's like I felt like before it was a bit more figurative, like, oh, you know, find who my true self is. But it's like, no, actually, I find out who the fuck I really am. Toko bowed her head to the floor.
一仕事を終えて余裕ができたからな。今度はきちんとトークの依頼をこなすことにするよ。
Toko dared to look at me with a glimmer of hope.
本当？
ああ、もちろんだ。
ありがとう、時坂さん。
She grinned from ear to ear. Though that expression was rare coming from her, she really did look like a girl her age whenever she showed it.
そろそろ寝ようか。明日帰るのだって朝早く出ないとならないだろう。
うん。
Toko nodded and crawled into my futon.
おい、そっちにも敷いてあるだろ
一緒の方が暖かくていいじゃないか。
She rested her head against my chest and glanced up.
じゃあ時坂さんおやすみ。寝ているからっていやらしいことしないでくれ
You're
よ。
one to talk, Jesus Christ. Toko giggled and closed her
う。おや
eyes.
すみ、トーコ。
I softly whispered those words into her ear before I closed my eyes and let her stay in my arms. Her comforting warmth and weight sank into me until I dozed off. March 27th. I stretched out under the warmth of dawn's brilliant rays. What greeted me when I opened my eyes was a beautiful morning. A cool, pleasant breeze was there to knock sleep's vestiges right out of me after I opened the window. You'd never get a morning like this in Tokyo.
トーコ、いい天気だぞ。
Toko groaned, still snug under the covers.
早く出ないと帰れないぞ。どうした？
Toko's countenance was pale. Though her skin was already pasty to begin with, it was practically cadaverous at the moment.
時坂さんおはよう。
However, she ignored my question and slowly rose to her feet.
おい、無理するなよ。
大丈夫さ。このくらい。
But no sooner had Toko said that than did she pitch to the
危
side.
ない！
I frantically darted forward and caught her in the nick of time.
しばらく休んでいろ。
I checked her forehead, but it didn't feel like she had a fever. Maybe it was anemia then.
多分昨日の時坂さんが激しすぎたからだよ。
バカ言うなよ。出立を少し遅れさせてもいいか、中井さんに聞いてくる。
I swept the covers over Toko and got up,
私なら大丈夫。
列車で長時間揺られるのは厳しいだろ
With Toko successfully mollified, I made my way to the front desk.
もう大丈夫だよ。
It wasn't until after 10 a.m. that Toko finally
う。
got
本
up.
当か？
I carefully scrutinized her, but her complexion did indeed look a lot better.
心配をかけてしまったね。早くしないとまたここに泊まる羽目になってしまう。
Toko got up and started to undo her sash before casting a glance my way.
もちろん私としては一向に構わないけれどね。
いいからさっさと着替えろ。
I scanned the timetable at Kurashiki Station. Crowds of commuters hustling and bustling all around me.
大阪まで特急で出た方がいいのかな。
そうだな。そっちの方が早く着けそうだな。
Afterward, I brought 2 tickets and handed one to Toko.
会長は大丈夫か？
心配いらないよ。朝よりはずっといいから。
少しでも気分が悪くなったら言うんだぞ。
うん。あ、でもお腹が減っていたら気分が悪くなるかもしれないね。
なんだ？駅弁か？
ほら、ママカリ寿司というのがあるよ。時坂さんが買ってみればいいと思うよ。
Toko grabbed my hand and pointed at a vendor selling boxed lunches in the station.
俺に帰って。
Excuse me.
私はそんなに食べられないから、時坂さんが残した分だけでいいよ。
そうか。
She was probably trying to act tough for my sake. I'd have to be ready to get off the train if she took a turn for the worse. Fortunately, my fears were ultimately unfounded, as we made it back to Tokyo without further incident. Toko yawned after getting off the train.
さすがにギリギリだったな。
The two of us boarded the literal last train of the night out of Tokyo Station.
もう一泊することにならなくてよかったよ。
お前、泊まってもいいなんて言っていたじゃないか。
気持ちとしてはさ、実際そんな余裕はなかったからね。明日も用事があるし。
用事？
あれ、妹さんから聞いていないのかい？明日は学院で復活祭の準備をするんだよ。
復活祭？ああ、イースターか。
昨日が春分の日を過ぎて最初の満月だったからね。復活祭は今度の日曜日さ。それで美術部でも準備をするのだけれど、どうやら顧問の佐伯教頭先生が来られないそうなんだ。
で、
I could tell where the conversation was going from a mile away, but played along anyway.
時坂先生なら時間は空いていると思ってね。妹さんに頼んでおいたんだけれど。
うん、聞いてないな。
How odd. It wasn't like Yukari to forget to mention something so important.
じゃあ明日よろしく頼むよ。
俺に他の用事があるとは思わないのか？
思わない。
Damn, not even a moment's pause for formality's sake.
ああ、本当に忙しいとか面倒くさいとかそういう理由があるのなら断ってくれても構わないよ。
お前な。そう言われて断れると思うのか？
思わない。
Toko smirked a little before giving me that cheeky answer.
ただいま、ゆかり。
おかえりなさい、兄さん。
Yukari greeted me like it had just been another day.
悪かったな。いきなり家を開けて。
いえ、兄さんが帰ってこないのはいつものことですから。
Said the girl, glaring like she was about to turn me to stone. I couldn't very well have hidden the truth from her, so I told her I was in Kurashiki with Toko when I called last
き
night.
ちんと土産は買ってきたぞ。昆虫の幼虫が入っているべっこう飴だ。
I found it at the station store during our layover. Even the normally unflappable Toko, even the normally unflappable Toko had been disturbed that they sold stuff like that.
どうもありがとうございま
This
す。
is a real freak here, Toko or Yukari? Yukari's glare eased up a bit. She must have really liked it.
で、昨日はすまなかったな。
今度からは気をつけてくださいね。
Good. Operation Appease Yukari is a total success.
あと、明日学院に行くらしいんだが。
ええ、そうですよ。先週言っておいたはずですが。
聞いてないぞ。 ほら、手帳にも書いてない。
I flashed the pages of my loyal and constant companion.
兄さんはその手帳にお仕事以外のことは書かないでしょ？
そんなことはないんだが、俺が忘れていたのかもしれないな。
お酒を飲まれている時でしたから忘れてしまったのかもしれませんね。
これからはきちんと書き留めておくことにするか。
Man, how can I call myself a detective when I forget important stuff like that?
では私はもう眠りますね。兄さん、おやすみなさい。
ああ、おやすみゆかり。
Yukari retired to her room, cradling the larvae candy all the while. Exhausted from nearly 2 full days of travel, I decided it was time to hit the hay too. Traveling, fucking. Yeah. This is my first time at Obergirl's Academy in days. Nothing looked different from what I could tell. Well, other than the conspicuous lack of students anyway. Though that was only to be expected, what with spring break and all.
兄さん、こちらですよ。
Yukari led me past the sport
美
field.
術室か。
ええ、そちらでイースターエッグを作るんです。
それでこの鍋を使うのか。
I gestured to the giant pot Yukari had made me carry.
片茹で卵を使うのが基本ですから。
で、卵はどこだ？
朝のうちに業者の方が納入しているはずですよ。
Yukari pointed to a stack of crates by the clubhouse.
では兄さんはあの箱を美術室まで運んでくださいね。
Yukari asked as she swiped the pot from me.
やれやれ。力仕事は俺かよ。
そのための男手ですから。
I hope you weren't thinking there was any other reason we wanted a man around. Yukari smiled broadly. I finished bringing all the eggs to the art room after what felt like forever.
こ
Tojiko was reclining in a chair for some
お
reason.
前、美術部じゃないだろ
いいじゃないのさ、別に。あゆもんだって来てるんだし。
う。あゆむん？
I looked around until I found myself locking eyes with Ayumu Sato.
こんにちは。
ああ、元気か？
There was no telling how she was doing with her friend recently dead and buried after all.
ええ、私は元気です。
どうして美術部に？
以前からゆいと一緒に来ていましたから。それに私も少しだけやってみたいと思ったんです。
Ayumu wrapped the painting tools next to her.
そうか。
いい心がけだね。
トジコは美術をやらないのか？
だからトジコ言うな。てか私絵下手だから。
なるほど。美的感覚に乏しいんだな。
なんでそうなると。
Tojiko stomped up and down like a child throwing a tantrum.
トジコ、そこの卵を持ってきてちょうだい。あ、うん。ってゆかりんまでトジコ言うな。
Ayumu chuckled as she watched Tojiko whining. It seemed she was doing just fine after all.
おや、もう始めていたんだ。
Toko and Toko joined mere moments later.
時坂先生もきちんと来てくれたんだね。感心感心。
約束させられたからな。
それではトウコ、早速準備に取り掛かるとしようか。
We hate Toko. We love Toko.
ええ。
Toko shot me an intense glare before following Toko. Man, what did I do to piss her off so bad? I mean, yeah, I can think of a few things. Toko wouldn't have told her about those, right? I glanced at Toko, but she wasn't acting any different. No surprise there, really. Toko wasn't the type to get hung up about stuff like that.
ねえゆかりん、お塩って入れた方がいいのかな。そうね、少しくらいのひびなら目立たないでしょうから。
Yukari and Tojiko placed the pot in the heater and made hard-boiled eggs. Meanwhile, the remaining 3 students began painting the finished eggs. As for me, well, I had absolutely nothing to do. Though I was just there to be chaperone, so that was a given.
暇そうだね、先生。
Toko smiled. It seemed she pitied seeing me sitting around like some sort of life-size statue.
こうなると本でも持ってくればよかったな。
じゃあ先生も塗ってみるかい？
Toko's paintbrush rustled across the back of my neck.
おう
先生は首筋が弱いのかな？
Toko, we're in front of everybody. You can't do this here.
やめろって
I ducked in an attempt to avoid Toko's tickling barrage.
トコ
Fuck off, Toko! You have nothing to do with us!
なんだいトウコ、急に大きな声を出して。
あの先生嫌がってるから。
You know, see, I don't trust Toko. Like, I don't even think she has anything to do with, like, this whole serial killer case or anything else. I just don't trust her. She, like, I feel like at any second she's gonna snap and try to fucking kill me in my sleep. Like, she's just... I don't like her, man.
そうなの先生？
やめろと言っていただろ
Excuse me. I knew it'd be best for my health and sanity to go along with Toko, though I was well aware her actions weren't motivated by any altruism. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me if I found her picture next to jealousy in the dictionary.
ゆで卵ができましたよ。
Yukari and Tojiko came over with eggs wrapped in towels.
食べちゃダメだからね先生。
閉じこじゃあるまいし食わねえよ
私だって食べんよ。廃棄処分前の古い卵ですから食べない方がいいと思いますよ。
だから食わねえって
And so everyone began painting the eggs. I watched on as a gentle spring breeze sifting through the window carried me off to sleep. Tojiko's face was right in front of me when I came to.
起きたみたい。
お
I jolted up on instinct and accidentally butting heads with Tojiko. Literally.
この石頭め
そっちこそ何をしているんですか。皆さん帰られましたから私たちも帰りますよ。
Yukari marched over, her face that of a mother exasperated by her rambunctious toddlers.
ゆかり先生がいじめる兄さん、あまりトジコをいじめてはいけませんよ。
別にトジコをいじめていたわけじゃないんだが
だから二人ともトジコって呼ぶな
Oh my god, no, 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 no. Not this motherfucker again! It's not over, man. It's not over. Okay. So, at the very least, we know that there is officially one person, one body that we have not accounted for. I mentioned this last episode, but what kind of was interesting to me is when you get the hard stuck ending, I do believe that it is Shugo's wife that gets her right leg chopped off. But obviously, in the when you make the options that allow you to like progress forward, it changes it seems, so that somebody else, unbeknownst to us for now, is the one who gets their leg chopped off. So interesting. Okay. The area was completely silent. Neither the tumult of drunkards watching the cherry blossoms or the racket of trains zooming by on tracks was audible from this place. It was the perfect environment to focus on one's work. Bolts of moonlight streamed through the window, illuminating a girl resting on the table. Her skin was smooth, alabaster and pristine, as though she were porcelain given human shape. Leather straps restrained her neck, head, and limbs to the table. Let the ritual begin. First things first, the hindrances had to be removed. That which she did not possess could not be allowed to remain. Now, what to use? An axe, a knife, or saw? The second seemed best for leaving a smooth-cut surface. After that, some post-op with a hand plane and nail file would be enough to fix any imperfections. Unfortunately, it was hard to ignore how long it'd take, not to mention all the shavings the saw would leave behind. On the other hand, while a knife was efficient at carving through flesh, cleaving through bone was a completely different story. That left the axe used last time as the most obvious choice. A hand firmly clasped the haft of the hatchet, the weight fitting snugly into its grip. Now, where to begin? The arms or the legs? Perhaps I should start with the ladder and let the blood drain out first. Or maybe I'll take her arms and dress her up like the Venus de Mio. After much deliberation, the legs were chosen. The logic behind that would be the best to get rid of the biggest obstructions first. The axe was raised and brutally swung down to the base of the right thigh. Florid blood gushed out when the blade met something hard. The still air shook with the utterance of a curse, followed by a silent realization that more strength would be required to hew through bone. The girl's eyes shot open. Her mouth flapped open and shut many times like a goldfish begging for feed. How hideous. I suppose I really will have to rebuild her. The hatchet carved a chunk of meat off the girl's thigh before a free hand stuffed the flesh into her mouth. There, that will do. No care was given to the possibility she'd just eat it. After all, there was still plenty of spare flesh to take its place if she did. And so, work on severing the leg resumed. This will never pan out. I'll have to use a saw after all. Jesus. A jagged blade was pressed against the white bone visible through the laceration in the girl's flesh, and the sawing commenced. Ear-grating sounds rent the air asunder as bone shavings flew about, quickly mixing with the gore. I see. I suppose I should keep using the saw in the future, since it doesn't leave any visible shavings behind. The right leg fell off the girl's body before long. Only one more to go. The saw sank its fangs deep into the meat of the thigh. It was very difficult to carve through flesh with it. The body twisted with each draw of the straw shaving down the flesh. It seemed the nail file would be necessary after all, especially considering how dilapidated the opening of the wounds had become. Eventually, with the help of the knife, all 4 limbs were severed. The chirps of sparrows echoed in the distance. The girl, on the other hand, had long since ceased her warbling. Dawn was at hand. I know. I'll use clay to execute the finishing touches. The last one had come out misshapen, since no work had been done to the body after the fact. I'll coat the wounds with white clay. Paper mache should do the trick. That should help me mold the face properly as well. Oh, Jesus. My work here is not done. Oh. Ooh. The boy had the same dream each night. It was a vision of meeting his mother in heaven. The boy wandered the woods, searching for the gates of heaven, but at some point he began to notice something approaching him from behind after he reached the road. He turned around but ultimately found nothing other than the endless darkness of the woods he traversed. With an immense sense of unease in his heart, he ran. The boy heard heaven and hell were right next to each other, and so he was terrified by the prospect he'd accidentally wandered into hell. That belief gave rise to the delusion that the darkness behind him was also some kind of monster, hastening his steps faster and faster. However, the darkness never abated no matter how far he traveled. If anything, it only appeared deeper than before. The boy continued his mad dash. Not even the bite of bushes against his face and stumbling on tree roots halted his race. Yet despite his best efforts, the darkness crept ever closer. Eventually, the boy tripped on a hole in the ground and fell flat onto the earth. Pain gnawed at his ankle. The darkness was now literally right before his eyes. The boy wept as he woke up. Around him was a tenebrous room. He knew he'd had a terrifying nightmare, but he couldn't remember a thing about it. Thus, the boy curled up under his covers and closed his eyes. And when he did, it felt like that terrifying face was right in front of him. It had all started with the most trivial of things. Oil had splattered onto her face while she was cooking, leaving a small burn on her cheek. It hadn't even stung, and yet it drove her mad. Day after day, she coated her face with layers upon layers of powder, slathering herself in makeup like a courtesan. The boy hated the stench of the powder. He hated how it made her face resemble an eggshell. She was a rather beautiful woman. That was the boy's impression of her. So surely her peers saw that even more than he did. She was the boy's mother. His father was an eccentric who couldn't even hold an actual conversation with his son. Thus, the boy was always alone. The only respite he found was in his inviolable sanctuary, his futon. Okay, looks like we actually just got insight onto the killer themselves. So it's a guy. I mean, not very surprisingly. The chances of it being a girl is kind of low. Huh.
春がやってきた。街中の公園でも桜が咲き、皆が束の間の享楽を貪っている。新緑が芽吹く。 私の一番好きな季節。
So I mean, obviously, aside from all the bodies that we have discovered, there seems to be now 2 more bodies that have fallen victim to this killer. And I have a feeling pretty soon here, we're about to get a call to one of these crime scenes. So, yikes. Gentle rays of spring sunlight seep through the windows. I was skimming through the paper while enjoying some post-breakfast coffee. The biggest stories thus far were about an African nation that declared independence and a minor fire at an elementary school in Setagaya, but none of those really piqued my interest. No, instead, a tiny article in the local news section caught my eye. Scraps of flesh believed human in origin found scattered in various locations. Another dismemberment? Seriously? I swear, it's just one murder after the other. Naturally, the paper didn't have any details on the incident. Still, it was disturbing that a body had been chopped up into such tiny chunks. What would drive someone to do that? A grudge, maybe? Or something else entirely?
兄さん、掃除しますのでそこをどいていただけますか?
Yukari strolled into the room, a broom in hand.
ああ、仕方ないな。出かけてくるとするか。
I folded the newspaper and got to my feet.
あ、月世界へ行かれるのでしたらコーヒー豆も買ってきてください。
わかったよ。いつものでいいんだよな。
ええ、よろしくお願いしますね。
I aimlessly wandered the streets until I finally arrived at Moonworld. Hatsune was out sweeping the
じゃ
street.
あ、初音くん。
あ、時坂さん、いらっしゃいませ。
She stopped what she was doing and bowed.
ちょうど今、魚住さんもいらっしゃっていますよ。
魚住が。
I peered through the window upon hearing that, and sure enough, Uezomi and his big ass were parked at the counter. Kyoko was chatting him up in her usual spot.
そういうことか。
入られますか?
Hatsune's nervous question brought my attention back to her.
初音くん。中にいる二人に気づかれないように奥の席に行きたいんだが。
え？あ、はい。そっと入れば大丈夫だと思います。
Hatsune nodded in what was probably instinctive behavior by now.
でも、どうしてですか?
ちょっと人間観察というものをやりたくなってね。
探偵さんって変わった方が多いですよね。
I was pretty sure I knew who else she was thinking of, but decided to keep my mouth shut. The door was slightly ajar, allowing me to tiptoe inside. I waited until Kyoko's back was turned before sneaking over to a table at the other end of the cafe.
気づかれなかったみたいですね。
Hatsune was having fun despite her prior exasperation. Seeing a smile like that was rather welcome after all the dark and depressing cases I'd taken recently.
コーヒーとカステラをもらおうかな。
はい、かしこまりました。
Now that I was here, it was time to do some spying. I stared at Uezomi. His hulking frame looked almost comical atop that tiny chair, his demeanor far meeker than usual.
桜はいつ頃まで咲いているのかしらね。
さあな、俺にはわからねえよ。
魚住くんはお花見行ったの？
いや、そんな暇はない。
まだ忙しいの？
Really impressive conversation skills there, man.
お待たせしました。
Hatsune brought my coffee over.
ありがとう。
なんで黙っているんですか?
Hatsune quizzically gestured to Uezomi as she served my sponge cake.
ああ、あいつ。魚住は京子に惚れてるんだよ。
そうなんですか?
仕事だったらいくらでも喋るんだが、ああいう時には全然喋らなくなるんだよ。
よくいらっしゃるとは思っていましたけど。
俺がいない時のやつはどんな様子なんだい？
あら、時坂くんじゃない。来てたんだ。
Unfortunately, Kyoko noticed me before Hatsune could provide any of the juicy details.
ああ、邪魔してるよ。
レイジ、なんでてめえが？
何うろたえてんだよ。
てめえ、いつ来やがった？
心配するな。ついさっきだ。顔が赤いぞ。風邪でもひいたのか？
あら、大丈夫なの、魚住くん。忙しい時こそ。
Hey brother, I don't blame you. Kyoko is a fine thing, bro. I do not blame you.
わかってる。
Uezumi's face flushed up scarlet to his ears. Okay, I've had my fun. Should have probably cut the teasing short now.
最近どうだ、ウォズミ。
どうもこうもねえよ。いつもと変わりねえ。
Uezumi stuck a cigarette in his mouth.
一つ片付けゃまた次の山が来やがる。
いいじゃねえか。俺なんて暇でしょうがないぞ。
仕事回してやろうか。
今は遠慮しておく。暇なのを満喫したいし、一件だけ仕事が入っているからな。
Toko's matter was still on the table. She'd probably start pouting if I didn't give it attention now that I had no other excuses.
そういや、草川はどうしてる？
変わらんよ。最初に供述した以外のことは何も言ってない。
そうか。
Oh well, it was all in the past
そうだ、
now.
京子。コーヒー豆買っていくわ。いつもの頼む。
ええ、わかったわ。しばらく待っていてちょうだいね。
I left the cafe after purchasing the beans. Going home and curling up with a good book sounded mighty appealing at the moment. However, I bumped into a familiar face in front of Kichijoji Station. It was Toko. God damn it! She was tottering along, head drooping. There was a sketch pad under her arm, which meant she must have been out drawing. And yet, she seemed terribly down in the dumps. I mean, sure, she was never all that chipper to begin with, but still.
水原さん。
I called her name out before I even knew what I was doing. Toko looked up and went silent. I didn't miss the gleaming spheres in the corners of her eyes.
どうしたんだい？
なんでもありません。
Toko turned away.
そう言われてもな。泣いている知り合いを放っておくわけにもいかないし。
泣いてなって。
Stubborn, isn't she?
俺は君に嫌われているかもしれないし、信用もないかもしれないけど、できれば話してくれないかな。
どこがいないんです。
朽木さんが？
My heart momentarily throbbed painfully.
今日、トウコと学院で絵を描く約束をしていたんです。でも、来なかったんです。
それは心配だな。
Maybe she was sick again.
これから朽木さんの家に行ってみるかい？
え？
水原さんだって心配だろ？
それはそうですけれど。
じゃあ決まりだ。ここから近いからついておいで。
I knew I was being pushy, but it was probably necessary to get her to go with me.
だから言いたくなかったのに。
Despite her complaints, Toko obediently followed my lead. Yeah, that's right, Toko, you dumb bitch. We passed through Inukashita Park and its menagerie of cherry trees in bloom before reaching the Kochiki residence.
ここが。
Toko looked around in awe. This must have been her first time here. I snuck a peek at her out of the corner of my eye and rang the doorbell. However, no one showed up even after a minute. Maybe they were out. Then again, Fumiya could have been at the clinic.
水原さん、ちょっとここで待っていてくれないか？
はい。
Luckily, the door opened at that moment.
先生、それにトウコ。
Toko darted over to Toko before I even got a word in.
大丈夫なの？そんな顔色も悪いし。先生とトウコなんて珍しい組み合わせだね。
It seemed she was well enough to joke around at least.
風邪気味のようで少し眠っていたんだ。じゃあ寝ておかないと。ああ、今日はすまなかったね、トウコ。約束していたのに行けなくて。トウコは悪くないわ。
You know, that actually is something that is kind of interesting to me because it's like, imagine living in a day and age where it's like you can't even just let somebody know, hey, by the way, I'm sick, can't come, right? Like you literally just have to leave them like high and dry until you eventually get better and can contact them. That's just crazy to me. No, don't worry about it. That's not your fault. Toko shook her head.
休んでおきなさい、朽木さん。
ええ、分かっているさ、時坂先生。
Toko nodded without putting up the least bit of a fight. The very next moment, I heard the clacking of sandaled feet strutting on over from the clinic.
トウコちゃん、そろそろ診察を。おや、時坂先生じゃありませんか。
どうも。
I bowed politely.
何かあったのですか？
いえ、こちらの水原さんが朽木さんのお見舞いをしたいと言ってましてね。
ああ、そうだったのですか。それはわざわざどうも。
では私は診察があるから。どうこ時坂先生に送ってもらうといいよ。
どうこお大事にね。
ありがとう、トウコ。
Toko shot a quick glance my way before accompanying Fumiya to the clinic.
帰ろうか、水原さん。
Instead of answering, Toko silently trailed behind me. I left the Kuchiki residence and made my way to the park. Toko was shadowing me.
先生。
I turned around. Toko stood still a short distance away.
なんだい？
先生は
大好きです。
どう思っているんですか？
どうとは？
とぼけないでください。
The edge in Toko's voice was sharper than ever.
トウコが倉敷に行ったことを楽しそうに話していました。先生も一緒だったのでしょ？
俺はただの付き添いだよ。
そんなのただの言い訳じゃないですか。
Doomed Yuri. Maybe she was right. Maybe that really was nothing but an excuse. Still, that didn't mean I could simply tell her the truth. I didn't want to ruin their friendship after all.
私からトウコを取らないでください。私にはトウコしかいないんです。
大丈夫だよ。君たちは親友だろ。こちらが入る隙間なんて初めからありはしないんだ。
でもトウコは最近いつも先生のことばかり気にかけてる。
それはおそらく君の考えすぎなのだと思うよ。彼女の意識が外に向けられていることに対して敏感に反応しているだけだと思うんだ。で
も
心配せずとも朽木さんは君のことを一番大切に思っている。
Alright, Reiji. You know, sometimes it's hard to remember considering he has something of a habit of going around fucking high school girls, but you know, at the end of the day, he's still a grown-up. He's got some good advice. Toko had to love her far more than someone like me. I was sure of that.
それでもいえ、ごめんなさい、先生。失礼します。
おい。
Toko ran off, ignoring my calls to stop. Oh boy, someone totally had the wrong idea. And then again, maybe she didn't. After all, Toko and I did sleep together, no matter how I might try to sugarcoat it. Love and romance weren't in the cards at my age, but as for them...
あの年頃は難しいな。
God, now I sound like an old fogey. Evening came before I even knew it. Where to? Oh my god, we haven't done this in fucking forever, I feel like. Let's see. We don't really have a reason to go to the art museum, for one. We don't really have a reason to go to the Takashino clinic, for two. We could go to the detective agency. I don't really think there's any point in that. We're already at Inukashita Park. We could walk around some more, I guess. We could go back to Moonworld or go to Obergirls, but we just came from there, so I don't feel like there's a point. Let's go to Moonworld. Why not? Right, Shirley? I mean, we've literally, in this singular day, been, like, practically all throughout here, so... I returned to Moonworld. Uzomi wasn't around anymore, much to my lack of shock. Though it would have been problematic in all sorts of ways if he were here.
あら、今日はよく来るのね。
What's this?
いいだろう別に。
Would have preferred a welcome back, not gonna lie.
悪くないわよ。大切なお客様だものね。
Kyoko chuckled as she beckoned me over to the
コー
counter.
ヒーを頼む。初音くんは買い物か？
そっちにいるわよ。
Kyoko pointed to the other end of the cafe. Hatsune was sleeping, her upper body sprawled atop a table, and a mop still in hand.
最近疲れていたみたいだったしね。 お客さんもいないし、そっとしておこうかなと思ったのよ。
おいおい、いくら店の中でもあのままじゃ風邪ひくぞ。
I got up and marched over to Hatsune. Ooh, look at her face or put my coat over her shoulders. Saving. Put my coat over his shoulders. I removed my coat and threw it over her shoulders. It seemed she was really sawing off logs. She'd probably wake up she'd probably wake up sore from sleeping in that pose.
初音ちゃんには優しいのね。
Kyoko's sarcasm wasn't lost on
茶
me.
化すなよ。放っておけないだろ
もしあそこで寝ているのが私だったらどうするの？
う。そりゃ起こすぞ。店長が寝ていたら店が立ち行かないだろ
確かにそうなんだけどさ。
Kyoko started pouting. Hatsune's sudden shriek sent my eardrums screaming in response.
ごめんなさい、京子さん。私眠っちゃってて。いいのよ。私が寝かしておいたんだから。
Excuse me. Kyoko just smiled and gently shook her head.
それよりも大丈夫？疲れているんじゃない？そんなことありませんから。外のお掃除してきます。
Hatsune ran outside vehemently fibbing, mop still in hand. I think a broom's more fit for that job.
きちんとお休みあげてるんだけど、あまり休みたがらないのよ、あの子。
Kyoko sounded drained.
京子もたまには休んだらどうだ。
私は大丈夫よ。それに時坂くんみたいに毎日のように来てくれるお客さんもいるしね。
I was going to ask if she would have taken a nap of her own if I hadn't shown up, but ultimately I held my tongue. Alright, let's see, where to now? Let's go. Obergirls Academy, Inokashita Park, Tokisaka Detective Agency. I mean... Yeah, and I mean, all this stuff is gonna be like... This is like the afternoon section, I think. Maybe Inokashita Park? I'm just trying to think, like... I'm trying to think if there is anywhere to go that would be important to the overall story, like, where would that be? Let's... I'm kind of between our detective agency or the park. Let's try the park. Why not? I returned to Inokashita Park. It wasn't long before I spotted a familiar face by the pond as I was strolling around.
Yo, Tojiko.
あ、先生。
I did not expect to run into fucking Tojiko here.
俺はもう先生じゃないぞ。
私だってトジコじゃないやい。先生がトジコ言うのやめたら私もやめてあげる。
そうか。じゃあ先生のままでいいぞ。
I refused to admit it, but I'd actually grown used to being called that.
あれ？
ところでトジコは何をしていたんだ？
I interrupted Tojiko before her brain melted any further.
あ、うん。一本締め切りが終わったから次の話の構想を練ろうと思ってさ。
ああ、小説か？
I'd almost forgotten that Tojiko was a bookworm, despite all evidence to the contrary at that.
そういや先生、今朝の新聞見たと？
ああ、目は通したが。
なんかさ、またバラバラがあったみたいでしょ？なんか知らないの？
肉片が出たってやつか。俺は何も知らないぞ。知ってたとしても、おいそれと教えられるはずないだろうが。
いいじゃない少しくらい。誰にも言わないからさ。
お前の場合、口に出さなくても小説で書くつもりなんだよ。
Even if she told us that her lips were sealed, I would not trust her.
うん、もちろん。大切なネタだからね。
じゃあダメだ。
じゃあさ、先生を小説に出してもいい？
俺なんか出しても面白くもなんともないだろう。
冴えない探偵と美少女小説家の大冒険。
The bombshell author.
Yeah.
I kicked back at home, treating myself to some post-dinner coffee.
兄さん、お風呂が沸きましたよ。
ああ、今行く。そうだゆかり、ちょっといいか。
何ですか？
朽木東子と水原東子はどういう関係なんだ？
I felt awfully curious about the latter after today's events.
お友達ですよ。
いやまあ、それはわかるんだが、いつも一緒にいるだろう、あの二人。
ああ、S だと思われているんですね。
S？ なんだそりゃ。
シスター、姉妹の S のことです。先輩と後輩の結びつきのことを言うのですけれど、極めて仲の良いお友達と言った方がいいかもしれませんね。
お前とトジコみたいなもんか。
私とつづり子は違いますよ。そうですね。もっと精神的につながっているというのでしょうか。男女間でいう恋人同士のような関係でしょうね。
Oh, hence why she was concerned I was stealing Toko from her.
やれやれ。最近の若い娘の考えていることはわからんな。
兄さんはそもそも女性の心理というものを理解されていないのだと思いますよ。
Yukari chuckled. I turned off the lights and went to bed. It was about time I finally got cracking at Toko's case. So she's adopted, huh? I highly doubted I could simply go up to her family and ask them about it. Maybe checking her family register would be a good starting point. Then again, maybe I wouldn't get the chance to see the whole thing, considering how the new Family Registration Act wasn't in full effect due to the lingering chaos following the war. Though that being said, Toko herself managed to look into it, so maybe it wouldn't be so hard after all. Regardless, I just have to wait until tomorrow to find out. For now, sleep came first. Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and stop right there. So unfortunately, not much really happened this episode. I think that's probably going to be kind of a theme. Well, not really a theme, but I think that's probably going to be the case for, at the very least, this episode and probably the next. Just because it seems like for right now, we're going to start looking more into Toko's case. And then eventually, we're probably going to stumble across another body relating to the Egg of Niannis killer. And I think at that point, the story will probably pick back up. Again, though, I do wonder, like, is the entirety of these three games going to revolve around these killings? Or is it going to be, like, different cases? Because it seems like, at the very least so far... Well, it's interesting. Because clearly, Toko has some connection to this egg stuff. There's so much about Toko that we don't know about. And I feel like for sure she has some kind of tie-in. I mean, obviously she has to have some kind of tie-in to this, to like these killings in some way, shape, or form. But again, we just know so little about her that it's impossible for me to even make like a guess as to what that might be. Really, the two biggest things that we have on her right now is that she's adopted, which we just found out. And then for two, that painting that we saw at the art exhibit all those episodes ago by Shinzo Mamiya that depicted pretty much like her straight up. So I think that one had the black egg in it. It might have, might not have, I kind of forget now, but so there's a lot about Toko that we just have no fucking idea about. And I think that I would imagine that this next part of the game, at least a chunk of it, is going to be largely focusing on Toko and her backstory and her character and, you know, yada yada yada. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I will probably, I think this video was only like an hour, 30 minutes long, something along those lines. I'll probably go back to like pretty much that, you know, like hour and a half videos, hour videos on this series, primarily because for one, I don't want to burn myself out on it. and I don't want to burn myself out on it because more than likely I'll be focusing on this series and wrapping this up for at least a little while, until I get the next games that I want to start on this channel sorted out. So you're going to be getting this for a while. It's going to be a lot more, because I think typically you would have gotten 3 videos a week. So it's going to be 3 of these videos a week. I'll try and make them as long as I can. But I think I mentioned it in the last video, but I've got a lot of stuff going on in my personal life right now, so I don't have all that much time to set aside a whole 2+ hours for these recordings and then editing them, and then it's a lot of time that I'd have to set aside to do that, which I don't exactly have. So yeah, but I think that from at least the sounds of it, from the sounds of how this episode ended off, I think we are in this next episode going to get we're gonna kind of pick things back up. I think that we had a little lull, a little downtime after we had this big climax, and now we're gonna slowly start getting back into the swing of things. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure to leave a like on the video and tell me in the comment section below what you'd like to see me play next. If you enjoyed this video or any other videos or series on my channel, then I highly recommend that you hit the subscribe button and turn on post notifications so you'll be notified when a new one of those videos comes out. Anyways, that's it from me, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.